This is not science fiction. This is happening right now. What if your enemy didn't need spies on the ground because they could see everything from space? Recent reports suggest that Iran may be using high-resolution satellite imagery linked to Chinese technology to track and target US military positions with deadly precision. We're talking about a new kind of war where data is the weapon and seconds can mean destruction. No warning, no hiding, no safe zones. This is the moment warfare changed forever from missiles and troops to algorithms, satellites, and real-time strikes. And the real question is, if anyone can see everything, who is still safe? Control begins the moment visibility becomes total. When nothing is hidden, power shifts instantly to the one who can see first, interpret faster, and act without hesitation. Satellite imagery isn't just intelligence sets dominance. It removes uncertainty, and when uncertainty disappears, so does hesitation. And hesitation is where most people lose. Men are wired to operate in chaos, but stripped of mystery, their edge changes. From a man's perspective, the battlefield has always been about instinct, risk, and reading the unseen. But when everything is exposed, the game becomes colder, more calculated. It's no longer about courage in the dark, it's about precision under a spotlight. Women, on the other hand, understand patterns and awareness differently. Where men often charge forward, women tend to observe, connect signals, and anticipate outcomes. In a world where everything is visible, that awareness becomes power. The advantage shifts toward those who can process what they see, not just react to it. When everything can be seen, trust disappears and paranoia takes its place. Because if you can see them, they can see you, and that changes how men lead, how they protect, and how they respond under pressure. Power shifted the moment information started striking before weapons did. Data no longer supports the battlefield-it defines it. When satellite imagery, algorithms, and real-time intelligence can pinpoint a target before a soldier even moves, destruction becomes faster, quieter, and more precise. Missiles are no longer the first strike, they're the final confirmation. Men have always been conditioned to believe strength wins wars, but data rewrites that instinct. From a man's perspective, power used to mean physical dominance, bold decisions, and commanding presence under pressure. But when information decides outcomes before action begins, that traditional edge feels threatened. The battlefield no longer rewards the strongest, it rewards the most informed. Women often navigate through information with a different kind of intelligence, one rooted in reading context and connections. In a world driven by data, that ability becomes critical. It's not just about having information, but understanding patterns, timing, and consequences. Where men may feel the urge to act, women often see the importance of waiting until the full picture is clear. When data becomes deadlier than missiles, decisions become the real weapon. Because the one who understands what they see controls what happens next. The battlefield didn't expand, it elevated. What once existed on land and sea has moved into orbit, where satellites silently watch, track, and guide decisions that shape outcomes below. Space is no longer a distant frontier, it's a strategic advantage. The one who controls the view from above controls the reality on the ground. Men are conditioned to fight what they can see, but space forces them to confront what they can't touch. From a man's perspective, strength has always been tied to presence boots on the ground, visible control, direct confrontation, but space strips that away. It demands trust in systems, in data, in invisible networks, and that challenges the instinct to dominate through physical means. Women often adapt more fluidly to invisible dynamics where influence isn't. I've always seen but deeply felt. In a domain like space, where control is distant and outcomes are shaped remotely, that mindset becomes powerful. It's less about force and more about awareness, less about reaction and more about anticipation. When space becomes the battlefield, control is no longer about where you stand, it's about what you can see and how you use it. Power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes IT connects quietly in the background. An alliance built on shared technology, intelligence, and access to space doesn't need headlines to be real. When one nation provides the eyes in the sky and another delivers the strike on the ground, the line between support and strategy disappears. What looks distant becomes deeply connected, and what feels separate starts moving as one. Men are conditioned to recognize threats they can clearly identify, but invisible alliances challenge that instinct. From a man's perspective, strength often comes from knowing who the opponent is and where they stand. But when cooperation happens behind closed systems and silent networks, certainty fades. That uncertainty creates tension because control feels harder to grasp when the battlefield includes unseen partnerships. Women often perceive relationships and connections with greater nuance, even when they are not obvious. In a world shaped by hidden alliances, that awareness becomes an advantage. It's not just about who is acting, but who is enabling, who is influencing, and who is quietly shaping outcomes from a distance. When alliances become invisible, power becomes harder to trace and easier to underestimate. Surprise used to be the most powerful weapon on any battlefield. The ability to strike when no one expected it created fear, confusion, and advantage. But when technology can track movement in real time, analyze behavior patterns, and predict intent before action is taken, that element begins to disappear. What was once unpredictable becomes calculated, and what was once half hidden becomes exposed. Men are conditioned to rely on timing, instinct, and the art of the unexpected. From a man's perspective, winning often meant outmaneuvering the opponent, catching them off guard, and controlling the moment. But when technology removes the shadows where strategy once lived, it challenges that identity. The edge no longer comes from surprise, it comes from mastering systems that leave no room for it. Women often navigate situations with a heightened sense of awareness where anticipation matters more than reaction. In an environment where surprise is fading, that mindset becomes increasingly valuable. It's about reading signals early, understanding intent before it's obvious, and adapting before the moment arrives. Where men may feel the loss of unpredictability, women may find strength and clarity. When technology erases surprise, pressure shifts from action to preparation. Because if nothing can be hidden, then everything must be anticipated, calculated, and understood before it even begins. The future doesn't arrive with permission, it forces adaptation. What once felt distant is now operational, active, and shaping decisions in real time. Satellite imagery, artificial intelligence, and precision targeting are no longer concepts, they are tools already being used. The battlefield hasn't just evolved, it has accelerated beyond the pace most people are prepared for. Men are conditioned to step forward when challenge appears, but this kind of war doesn't always show itself. From a man's perspective, readiness has always meant physical strength, courage under pressure, and the willingness to confront danger head-on. But when threats are driven by data, algorithms, and distant systems, that instinct faces something unfamiliar. It demands a shift from reaction to anticipation, from visible control to invisible awareness. Women often approach complexity with a broader lens, where connections and consequences are constantly evaluated. In a world where war is shaped by networks rather than just weapons, that perspective becomes critical. It's not only about what is happening, but how everything is linked, how one decision triggers another, how one signal reveals a larger pattern. That depth of awareness turns information into insight. Preparation no longer begins when conflict starts, IT begins long before anyone realizes IT. Because the future of war is not about who reacts faster in the moment, but who understands the moment before it arrives, who adapts before they are forced to, and who recognizes that the rules have already changed.